In 2014, I was 18 years old and I graduated high school, and a month later I walked down the aisle to marry the man I thought I was going to be married to forever. Anybody who tried to stop me, I basically would tell them, you don't get married preparing for divorce. That's stupid. I would tell anybody who asked me, well, what about college? I would say, that's not my plan in life. I want to be a mom. I want to be a stay-at-home mom. I found the man who supports that dream, and I'm going to marry him, and we're going to have a wonderful life together. My husband was a active duty Marine, and by July, he was flying me from Arkansas to California, where we were going to begin our life as a married couple. He brought me out to California, and within 3 months he had deployed, and I was left in California by myself. I knew no one there, and I didn't know how to drive in San Diego. I come from a very small town in Arkansas, basically a farming town. Didn't know how to drive interstates at all. I panicked. I learned how to get to the grocery store and back, basically, and that is how I did it for the entire, I think he was gone almost 8 months by the end of it when he came back. And go forward a couple years, and we are now having our first baby, and surprise, surprise, it turned out to be twins. My husband kind of showed his true colors right then and there. Our twins were born premature, and I remember him looking at me and saying, I don't feel like a dad. They don't feel like mine. And it hurt me at the time, but I really thought, we bring them home, he's going to love them. That's not the case, and due to everything that was going on and how overwhelmed I was as a mom, I was 21 years old when my twins were born. I was launched immediately into postpartum depression. It was very rough, and for a solid year, my neighbor, who was my best friend and still is, she is the reason I'm still here. She took over the role that my husband should have taken on, and she helped me raise those babies. That should have been my sign right then and there to leave. But again, let's remember, I was a traditional girl raised with traditional values, and I didn't believe in divorce. So, flash forward another year, I am having our third child. Once again, my husband was not much help, and this time I had to drive myself in active labor to the hospital by myself. He would meet me there later, and I believe he brought his laptop and he played League of Legends while I was in active labor. Then let's flash forward a couple more years, and I am pregnant with our fourth baby. This time, this baby was conceived of rape. My husband raped me while our oldest son was in the hospital dying. He had something known as MISC, and my husband came up to visit, and he raped me, and we conceived our fourth child. Initially, I did not want to keep this baby, but my husband told me that if I were to terminate, he would remind me every single day of my life that I had killed our baby. So I kept the baby. This time we're going to flash forward 6 months. 6 months later, we are now living at Camp Pendleton in California. We have been married at this point almost 7 years, and he goes away for a wedding, and while he's away at a wedding, I find out that my husband is a child predator. I found child pornography on his computer. I had to report my husband, and that day my world came crashing down. It came absolutely crashing down on top of my head. All of a sudden, I am a single mother of 4 children, one of which is severely disabled, 2 of which are autistic, and then I have a baby. And all of a sudden, I am having to do things I never thought in my life I would have to do. I'm having to support 4 children. I'm having to think about, what am I going to do for work? I'm having to think about, what am I going to do for daycare? Because none of my children at this point are old enough to go to school. And even if they do go to school, what am I going to do with my oldest son? My son that has so many medical problems, my son who will be sent home so often, my son who needs so much therapy that now I have to find a way to get. How am I going to provide medical insurance to them? How am I going to feed us? How am I going to clothe us? How am I going to get a house? I don't even know if I have a credit score at this point in time because I was a stay-at-home mother, and my husband, he took care of everything. I was a traditional wife. Thankfully, I figured it out. I am 2 years out, and we have survived. We have done more than survive. We are thriving at this point in time. But I can't tell you all how horrific it was to go from being so dependent on my husband to not having him at all. And I wish I could go back in time and tell my 18-year-old self not to marry him. I wish I could go back in time and tell myself I will save myself so much heartache. I will save my children so much heartache by not marrying this man and not conceiving children with him. Because here I am 2 years later, and I am in the most horrific custody battle of my, well, the only custody battle I've ever been in, but the most horrific custody battle that I never conceived I would ever be in. I have a convicted child predator trying to get visitation rights to our children. I am trying my hardest to protect them, and honestly, I'm making myself go gray with how much I worry every night, because even now, we don't have an update on what's going to happen. We go back in May. We just had a court date 2 days ago. And I can't tell you all how much I wish I could go back in time and tell myself that being a traditional wife isn't a thing anymore. It's a thing of the past, because you don't know who your husband is. I know so many people think they know their husband, but you just don't know. You don't know what could happen. Even if you have the best relationship there is, what if your husband dies? What are you going to do? We don't live in a day and age anymore where you can be 100% dependent upon someone, because all it takes is one moment and your entire world is going to change. You have to have a contingency plan. You have to have one. And if this experience has done anything, at least I know when my daughter gets older, I'm going to be able to tell her why she shouldn't do it. I'm going to be able to tell her why she needs to go to college, because I so wish I had a college degree. It would make my life so much easier if I did.